The last thing you want to do is be completely unprepared and die without a will, or what we call intestate, and expose your assets to the prescribed rules of the state as to who gets them. Hi, friends. This is Colin Richards, and I'm excited to be with you today on this episode of The Lord and Richards Show. And today, as always, we're talking about ways that you can experience financial freedom, retirement freedom, if you're ready to step away from work, or if you'd like to get prepared to do that so that you can do more with those that you love. I'm excited about our topic today. Last time we were together, I introduced it as financial life planning. Now, other people might call this estate planning, and I get it. That's what it's all about. But what that does is it tends to put in our mind a preconception that this is death planning, right? Well, this is really life planning, because your estate is more than just what you pass on. It's what you own today. And we want you to maximize that now. And so as we prepare your finances so that you can maximize the output to you and your family and minimize how much gets sent down to the government, to hospitals, to nursing homes, that's life planning. It does include getting some documents in place that will help your family when you do eventually pass on. Some of these documents are of vital importance, and we've talked through those. But for me, this is really life planning, not just death planning. And what we've learned is if we don't get ahead of this, our money is going to naturally go down the tubes to those organizations that we would rather they not, like government, hospitals, and nursing homes. So there is a two-sided coin to this life planning. Yes, you need documents in place, like an advanced health care directive, powers of attorney, last will and testament, and so on. But those documents are about the end of life, and we're going to talk as well about things you need to be doing during your lifetime. But what we talked about when we discussed those documents last time is that they're all important, and they all do different things, but some are more important than others, such as who makes the decision when you're experience a healthcare crisis and not able to make that decision on your own. You know, is it your ex-wife? Is it somebody that you thought of years ago and that is no longer really that important to you? Are these documents up to date? You should be doing that every 18 months to 3 years. You should be updating those kinds of documents. Another very powerful document, more important than a will in my estimation, is your powers of attorney. Just like your advanced healthcare directive, this gives a voice, your voice, to those decisions, and they're thought through while you're healthy, while you're living, while you have your faculties. And so whoever has the power to control your healthcare and your financial decisions has tremendous power. You want to make sure you choose that person carefully and you direct in advance the kinds of things that they can do with your money and with your health. And then, of course, we talked about wills, your last will and testament. But remember, this is just a document to give you a voice at death court. You say, death court, that sounds serious. Well, that's what we call probate. This is when anything that you have gets distributed according to the rules found in your will, if it's a valid will at the time of death. And the judge will determine that. And the average cost of that is rather expensive, 2 to 6% of your net worth when you die. Wow, it takes a long time, 12 to 18 months, plus a holding pattern for your creditors to swoop in and claim what's theirs. It's a public process, so who really wants their affairs and their laundry aired in public? And it is contestable. You can contest in probate court. So that's what the will does, is it gives you a voice there. But you know what our job is? It's not to put everything into the will. It's to get everything out of the will and out of death court, that public contestable process that takes forever and costs so much, and to bypass that, right? We need to properly title your assets so we go right around the will. We go right past it. We'll have one. You need one. It's there. Often we call them pour-over wills for everything we missed and didn't set up properly to receive and provide instructions for anything that didn't get there. And basically what it does is it says, hey, I want you to go back to some other documents that I've got in place to make a determination as to who gets this. Now, the last thing you want to do is be completely unprepared and die without a will, or what we call intestate, and expose your assets to the prescribed rules of the state as to who gets them. And there's an order in which your next of kin all receive that. And do you really want your second cousin twice removed to get your life savings? Is that person special to you? Well, better to plan in advance. Now, in this series of episodes, we're going to be talking about a specific document in the end of life planning, part of life planning, okay? This is called a trust. And we're going to go into a little bit more detail over the next couple of segments. And then we're going to switch gears and go into what I call life planning, which is while you're still healthy. So we have end of life planning, but then we have healthy life planning. And we're going to touch on both of those today. So let's start with this document called a trust, because there's a lot of misconceptions, right? A lot of times, attorneys or others will want to wow you with their specially named trust, the fix everything trust, the, insert name here trust. Well, those fancy names can be ignored because they just focus on what kinds of assets are held in the trust and what you want done with those assets. Well, that's fine. Every trust can be customized, and they've just given these fancy names to some that get used more often than others, these customized trusts. But everybody can customize, all right? It's not that you have to have been doing this for 50 years to know that. There are two kinds of trusts. These you need to be familiar with: revocable and irrevocable. So if you're planning for the end of your life or during your life, a trust is a valuable tool. There's both living and death benefits to this planning. So what is a revocable trust? Because that's usually what you see. If it says the John and Sheila Smith Family Trust, right? That's usually called a revocable. It means you can change your mind. It's flexible. You can change it. You can get rid of it. And it really comes to life when you pass on, okay? That's when it kicks in. That's what that document is for. I call it an I love you document. It's a document designed to prepare and share in advance your wishes, bypassing the expensive, time-consuming, public, contestable process we call death court or probate. Bypass that completely, get everything right to those that you love or the causes that are important for you. It provides organization, it provides simplicity, it provides clarity, and whoever you saddle with the task of being your executor will love you for having this document in place and kept current. Because I can't tell you how many times I see trusts that are out of date that no longer reflect the wishes of the person or the persons who put that trust together. It does come with a pour-over will, as I mentioned earlier, so anything you missed, it basically instructs the court, if it made it to death court by mistake, send it back to the trust, okay? Get it back here to the trust so we can get things where they need to go, not contest it, and so forth. So in our next segment, we're going to talk about the second kind of trust. But in the meantime, this is just a slice of very important planning. It is very important, but it's one small piece. At Lord & Richards, we do comprehensive planning, and it starts with a simple, really wonderful conversation we call a retirement freedom review. And in that, we will look at your entire situation and help you determine, are you set up to be truly financially free, whether now or in retirement? And so that process is going to be vital. And as a part of that process, Lord & Richards will walk you through how to make sure these legal documents are prepared and kept up to date. I would love to get that process started with you right now. We've done it for thousands of people just like you, trading insecurity and fear about what's going on in this world for a real sense of peace. It simply starts with a phone call.